So there was a hearing in D.C. yesterday involving the big tech companies, and it was an antitrust hearing ranging from theft to monopolization. And for the most part, it's something that I care about. And a good chunk of what was said, I feel like, was a waste of time. It was a practice in partisanship. It was the Republicans spending most of their time asking people like Mark Zuckerberg, why did Donald Trump Jr.'s Twitter account get blocked? Until realizing he doesn't own Twitter, he owns Facebook. Um, People like Sundar Pichai of Google was asked why does Google steal content? When he replied they don't, the only pushback he got was a clarification of some statements made and said, seems like your representation of yourself is false. Sundar basically said, go fuck yourself, and was never questioned any more about it. This was really feckless and a waste of time. I haven't even got to the fact that most of the Democrats spent their time asking about Russia. How Russia was able to hack into our elections, how Russia was able to infiltrate. By the way, claims that have all pretty much been disputed and completely rebuked. Russia had the same access as any other country. They didn't have an overwhelming access. It was a waste of time when we have very important people doing very dangerous stuff in our country. People like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Pichai and yes, even Tim Cook are all criminals. They've all taken what was an American dream and destroyed it by effectively killing small business and killing startups. They openly admit these things. Mark Zuckerberg, in an email, mentioned that they're going to buy Instagram because it could be a competitor and they don't want to have to compete with them. And then later said it'll be a little while, but we're hoping we'll get to a point when we can buy out Google. All of these are incredibly serious situations when you're talking about antitrust and monopolization. This is how the free market and essentially how the American dream is killed. But instead of taking the time to really question these guys about it, our senators and representatives just spent the entire time kowtowing to their own party. It's like politics has gotten to such a dangerous place that we're actually not getting anything done besides rooting for our other team. It reminds me of the incessant fan who just screams out their team is number one as their team just lost a game. It's exactly what we're dealing with here. The only credit I can really give is to Premier Jayapal, who really did ask Jeff Bezos a very seriously good question and pushed him on it. But again, we got an answer, and it was stunning. I will play that video here in a second. But on the Jeff Bezos note, Jeff Bezos wasn't asked a question until 82 minutes into this thing. Jeff Bezos is probably one of the most dangerous men in America. And they let him sit for hours before they asked him a question? And there was a reason why. We'll talk about that too. Matt Gaetz also came in with some very good questioning as well. But outside of the outliers that are Pramila Jayapal and Matt Gaetz, by the way, proud populists and two people that I have some respect for. The rest of them really just seem to pander to their party side and talk about being doxxed or being blocked and complaining about emails being sent to the wrong place and Republican followers not getting notifications when Republicans publish things. The left wing complaining that Russia has too much access to our internet, and that's a problem, and we need to do something about it. Now, I will play the shining moment of this hearing, and it was, like I said, from Pramila Jayapal asking Jeff Bezos a question that we didn't want the answer to, actually.
Mr. Bezos, in July 2019, your employee, Nate Sutton, told me under oath in this committee that Amazon does not, quote, use any specific seller data when creating its own private brand product. So let me ask you, Mr. Bezos, does Amazon ever access and use third-party seller data when making business decisions? And just a yes or no will suffice, sir.
I thank you for the question. I know it's an important topic, and I also want to thank you for representing us. I can't answer that question yes or no. What I can tell you is we have a policy against using seller-specific data to aid our private label business, but I can't guarantee you that that policy has never been violated.
Damning. Coming from Bezos saying, we may actually steal from sellers. I don't know. But just proof right there. Because honestly, we have to look at it two different ways. One, he has no control of what happens in Amazon and has no idea exactly what's going on in his own company. Or he doesn't want to actually just come out and say, yes, we do steal from our sellers. We rip off our competitors and make a cheaper product and then dox them and block them from being available to the average consumer that uses our website. This is the perfect example of why Jeff Bezos and Amazon is one of the most dangerous entities in our country. This is why, because if you're a small business and you want to expand, you have to use Amazon. And if your product is doing well, Amazon will just copy it and then block you or undercut you and sell it a lot cheaper. Most of your revenue will be gone and you'll have to shut it down. Or they might be nice if they can't figure out how to completely steal your property and they'll offer to buy you out. And if you don't take that because they're going to offer you peanuts, then they'll end up ripping you off and hiding you in their app. This has been done many, many times. And Pramila Jayapal, to her credit, did ask a really good question and got a decent answer. Is it going to change anything? No. And part of the reason why we had this issue was because they all work for these people. Jeff Bezos is one of them. He's in the crew. We later found out why they weren't attacking the monopolization, the antitrust laws that were actively being broken. At least on the Republican side, why they weren't attacking. And that is because of Jim Jordan. And he sent out this internal memo where he basically says, I don't want to attack antitrust laws or really blame big tech because I don't want to look like we're trying to attack capitalism. We're trying to attack freedom. This memo is incredibly damning to Jim Jordan himself. He then made the mistake of going on to Tucker Carlson, where Tucker Carlson called him out on these same things and asked, well, why would Google give you $3 million? Why are they your second biggest contributor? And if it had nothing to do with anything, then why didn't you go after Google? Why didn't you press them on stealing content from other companies? Why didn't you go after any of that? Why did you sit there calm and quiet? Why did you guys only go after one certain angle? Of course, Jim Jordan came back and said it's a free country, and that if a company wants to invest in him, it's their right, and blah 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 blah. But we know it's all bullshit. We know what they do, and this is why they exist. Every single one of these people, the people who won't sign on to give the taxpayers their money back in this horrible time, the people who are working for Google and Amazon and carrying Jeff Bezos' sack, they all need to be fired. They all need to be gone. This hasn't been as relevant as it is now, but we see exactly how worthless our representation really is. And something must be done about it. I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on all of it. How you feel. Is it okay what Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and all these big tech companies, is that okay what they do? And or do you have experience outside of that? I know that there is a lot of interesting stuff with agriculture and how antitrust laws are being broken in that sector as well, as in every other sector. wherever there is a top 5%, they are ruling in very demanding ways and that are almost unattainable in most other small businesses. But if you have any information like that, we'd be interested to hear about that. Curious what your thoughts are on everything. Thanks a lot, guys. You have a good one.